You're listening to the AID Network.
Hello, friends. Good morning, and welcome to a very special Comment Below. Not only are we popping up on a Tuesday rather than our regular Monday, because my Wake Up Call series is back. Go check it out. Wake Up Call, Mark Brickey. I think it's actually called Mark Brickey's Wake Up Call. What a great plug. Available on 11 different platforms, daily PMA, 5 to 10 minute episodes. Season 2 just kicked off, 50 more episodes, and I'm looking back at the hardcore years, 1986 to 2000, how I was raised by punk rock. But today on the show, we're going to just do a deep dive on, I'm going to say, Connie, welcome back to Comment Below.
Thanks for having me back so quickly.
Oh, I love having you here. The audience was happy to hear you were going to be a regular part of things. Don't worry. Mort's still going to be around, but there is a massive time difference between me in LA, Connie in Kentucky, and Mort in Castle Times over in the UK. And Sean hasn't even started watching what I believe is possibly the best season of television that I've seen this entire year. We're right now at October 2nd. So that means there's 10 months in the can. And I don't think I've seen anything as good as Ozark season 2.
I'm probably going to have to agree with you. I think I might have told a few people that exact statement myself. And this isn't from there being like a low point in TV either. It's just that it's this good. Yeah,
it really rose above anything else that I've seen this year. And, you know, we talked the last time we got together, is the TV Renaissance over? Go check it out. We talked about how we felt like TV was hitting a little bit of a lull, and also how the VOD platforms weren't necessarily delivering the hits like they used to. And I feel with Netflix, I've seen a lot of season 2 sophomore slumps. Ozark, the first time around, I thought it was a good first season. I enjoyed it. I made it to the end. I lost a wife along the way. Beth was holding me hostage and said, look, are you going to finish this with me or not? She's like, I don't care. It's too slow. I don't know what's happening. And she gave me the show. I got the custody rights to Ozark.
That's one area where you and I are the same. I think we both like a slow burn. We're willing to wait. We're into the minuscule parts of the show, where we're in the same boat. Stacy did not get on board with me on this one at first. I'll give her the pass. She was finishing her college degree at the time, and working.
What an excuse.
Yeah. So, but as soon as that was over, she said, I've missed TV for 2 years. I'm just going to sit here. And I walked in and she had started Ozark. You know what I did? I sat right back down. I dipped right back in it. And I was like, oh, Lord. And I just had to get up and leave because I was so tore up about watching her watch it. And then it happened, 2 started right up after that. So we just basically, and they dropped that right at Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
So that was a great little, we turned off completely and just watched season 2 of Ozark.
I had some regular TV to get caught up on because I have a very unique way where I watch TV, where I like to get all of my live shows current. And then when they're all current, when I've seen all of them and I've seen all the latest episodes, I go and I'll spend a week going through something that's VOD, just binging one episode after the other. What that does is that puts me a week behind on live shows. So now I have the second to last and the last Fear of the Walking Dead. Boom, boom. I now have back-to-back episodes of The Deuce to cruise through. Same with Mayans, MC. So, I like to watch things back and forth. So jumping over to Streamland gives me a chance to get a little bit backed up, and then I've got multiple things to watch.
I wish I could be as disciplined as you are in your TV watching plans. I used to be a lot more planned out with it, but now I'm just like, it's like if any other kind of addiction.
Yeah.
I sat down, Ozark came on. It was like, give me the next one. Give me the next hit. Give me the next hit. I can't, this is building up. This is getting better. I can't quit. And I found that I do that. Now, things like The Deuce, where I wasn't so in on that first episode, I'm letting a few of those build up.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit and then run those all together and see if I can't get that magic back from that show, because I wasn't feeling it in the first episode.
The reason why I didn't like the first episode when I watched The Deuce is because I accidentally watched the second episode first. And things felt really out of place. And I'm like, what am I watching here? So then I watched the first one, and it made what I had seen make more sense. But when I got around to watching Ozark, I thought, okay, this will probably be pretty good. Season 1 was good, but season 1, it had some good climax, it had some good drama, and it had Jason Bateman in the performance of his career, like that cynical, like he's kind of always the smartest guy in the room, and then there's kind of a way where he reacts, but nobody reacts to what he's saying. It's just like a really, really great character that I thought shined its best in Arrested Development. And then when you see him doing that same personality in a dark drama, I'm like, how is this going to work? And it worked out really, really well.
I feel like what we're getting is real Jason Bateman. I think if we hung out with him in real life, this would be the guy that we're getting, minus the nefarious activities, I hope. But I've heard him on some podcasts recently, and just cemented for me that, yes, he probably is the smartest guy in the room, and you generally hate that guy, but not him. Like, I want to sit around and chill out with this guy. And I agree, performance of his career, and that's a career of a lot of really good stuff.
And there's just a way where you give him space, because when somebody tells him something and he does that signature, like he puts his head down, you see him kind of like stare off into the distance. You actually enjoy watching Marty Byrde process the data and try to figure out what's the next play here. So season 1, I thought it was good, but I thought they took a pretty good story and diluted it with a little bit of water. Season 2, you couldn't stack up more high pressure events, more stress. I mean, the way that it just built, it's one of the fastest paced episodes of television I've ever seen. There was no downtime. Nothing was gratuitous. And everybody who's a designer loves that when that O pops up, the Ozark O, you have 4 icons that are going to give you an insight into 4 major plot twists, 4 major moments in the episode. On season 2, something that was very icon worthy has just happened, and now you're getting an O with 4 more things that are going to happen that you're supposed to look out for. I'm like, dude, like, this is O worthy, what we just saw. And that's just the opening 8 minutes before we even get to the title block. So it just was fast paced, pedal to the metal, the whole 10 episodes through.
I think what added to the pacing and the suspense for me on the second season was you had Marty and his wife Wendy being a team forced together, but ultimately working towards the same goal in season 1. In season 2, it's everybody out for themselves. And you throw that element where he can't trust her and she can't trust him. They can't trust anyone else in, and we're along for that ride with them.
It was that, and also, I know they have a lot of like heavy shit, illegal stuff happening in their life, but we also see them work through their marriage more. Like, they're divided, but they are more of a team. The family dynamic is stronger, even though they each have so much shit that they're sorting through. And I wanted to start with one of my favorite quotes is, "This is not a family. It's a gang of criminals living together." And I absolutely loved when one of them just spout that to the other. So here's what we're going to do on the show today. We're only going to look at Ozark season 2. We're going to go through all 10 episodes, some of our favorite moments, the way that it was shot, heavy plot twists, when characters really sort of took their power and found their voice in this season. And then for members in part 2, Connie and I each have a list of 20 characters laid out in front of us. And we're going to go number for number. We have 4 honorable mentions, but we have 16 that we ranked, and we're going to go through and be like, who did you have at 16? This is who I had. So it's an all Ozark episode review. If you haven't seen it for whatever reason, by all means, I can't recommend this one enough. If you watched Halt and Catch Fire on my recommendation, I put this one in that same rarefied air. It's really good. And the thing that it'll do great for you is it'll make all of your freelance creativity, financial problems, personal problems, it'll make your life seem very, very dull when you look at the life of the Byrdes. You ready to jump in, Connie?
Absolutely.
All right. Episode 1 was called Reparations. It's a 10 episode season 2, and we just jump right in. The first thing that we see, and I love this about this show, and I try to do this when I do my vlogs over on YouTube. I love disruptive storytelling. I love when things aren't linear, when time is out of sequence, because it just kind of gives you a heads up of, oh, there's things that we should be looking out for. So the first thing that we see is Marty and Wendy dancing at the benefit and the ballroom. And right out of the beginning, they talk about if we could go anywhere, if we could get away from this fucking cesspool of problems that we've created, where would you want to go? And she jokes, the Gold Coast, which right out of the beginning, they're telling us episode 10 is called the Gold Coast. Everything comes up to this moment of betrayal with the Gold Coast. And we hear that first thing out of their mouth. They're already planning this whole story for us right out of the gate.
Yeah, I love a episode out of time.
Yes.
Like when that came up, I was like, okay. It took me a little bit. I was like, are we before any of this happened back in her political living world? Or have they done these crimes yet? Is this like they're fantasizing when they first started the money laundering and she found out about it? Like, I didn't know where it was going, but yeah, I looked at the list and saw Gold Coast and I was like, okay, we're seeing planning here towards
you looked ahead. You allow yourself to look ahead. You're such a dirty bird.
I look to see how many episodes so I know what I'm in for.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I do look at the number of episodes, but I don't look at titles. I try to go in as blind as possible. So not only do we see the Gold Coast and we don't know where we're at, you quickly start to realize through lots of different scenes in this first episode that we're just right in the fall. Season 1 ends in the summer. There's people out in boats. The tourists are in town. The daughter's always swimming off the dock. We're right into the fall. And they tell us that by putting football everywhere and bare trees. And there's something about a vacation town when it's not in vacation mode that it has a whole different set of peacefulness to it and relaxation to it. And a personal dream of mine that I hope that I accomplish one day is I love the idea whenever I see like a cabin in the woods on a body of water or on a mountain or on the ocean, the first thing I always think about when I see that living room with the epic view out the many windows, I always think, what a great place to watch football. What a great place to relax in the fall.
Absolutely. That's one of the things. I mean, it's a feeling in my body that happens when I start to look out the window and you can tell the difference between the hot days and the sunny, cool days. And I start thinking about the football and the announcers and what they're talking about and getting into the games and possibly going to games. Then what are we going to eat when we watch the games on Sundays? Are we cooking a big pot of something? It hunkers you down into like family, home, relaxation mode for me.
Yeah. Hibernating. What we're supposed to do, I think. One of the things we also see right out of the gate, they set up a lot of story in this very first episode, reparations. We see that Cade Langmore is now a free man, which is Ruth's dad. And you just know right out of the gate, some way or another, this motherfucker is going to fuck it all up for everybody. It's just, he's a low-level criminal. He can't see the big picture. And you just know that he's going to be trouble right out of the gate. The episode actually ends with him and his daughter lying in bed together. And I found a very bizarre sexual tension between him and his daughter. And I kept wondering, when is he going to lay a hand on her? Which I would have thought, bold move in this climate that we're in if they go down that plot route.
I was watching nervously during that whole episode because then I start in my mind going, okay, I'm looking at the character of Ruth. If this happens, then I see that this probably happened to her younger and contributes to their relationship and the way the regard she holds him in and he, her. And I got really nervous. Plus there had been some other shows that I was watching around the time that played on that. Sharp Objects had a incestuous feel to it, as did The Sinner had actual sister incest going on in it, and it was just rocking our world around here for a little while. So I was getting nervous. I was like, is this like a new thing?
Do we have to go there again?
So that guy you mentioned, the smartest man in the room. I think that Cade thinks he's the smartest redneck in the room.
Yeah, he does.
And so automatically you're like, he and Marty are going to butt heads in a battle of a thinking man and a not thinking man, because Cade doesn't think about what he does. He's thinking the short game. He's not looking at the repercussions.
Right.
And we've seen that through all the Langmores. Ruth is the only one that thinks about the repercussions, but then she's got all these other things pulling on her that make her act in ways that she's just really too smart to act most of the time.
Well, there's the scene where we see Marty show up in his black tie, and he gets out of his shitty minivan, and then he's there with all the Langmores who basically live like campers. You know, they got a couple of different trailers. One of the trailers has writing on the side of it, like maybe it was used for a construction lot at some point, you know, when they pop up those mobile offices. But I love that scene where, you know, here's Marty, a guy that's trying to get into that upper realm of society, but his car shows you that it's Emperor's new clothes at the moment, and then he's still dealing with these trashy people. So in this one shot, you literally see the three different epic economic levels of society and people that are trying to get beyond the lot that they were given in life. And I found that conversation, as contentious as it was, I found a lot of like inspiration in there of everybody's trying to get someplace and be somebody that they're not. And it all happens in this little argument in this campsite.
Yeah, because I believe Cade says to him at one point, "You look like you've got somewhere to be," or something like that. And I thought that was like a little dig at the same time, like not. But Marty, it's when you're saying the three classes and three levels right there, the thing about Marty is you wouldn't think he could. When you saw him in Chicago, you would have not have thought that he could come down there and glide through these people like he has.
Yeah.
But again, there's just something about him. And I think it's that instinct that we had in the first episode of the series where he's on his knees tied up, getting ready to get executed, and is able to just talk his way out of it.
Yes.
People that don't let people talk. They'll listen to what you've got to say, but they're just going to go ahead and shoot in the head when they walk away, cartel members. But that was a good way to illustrate that, and you know that they pulled up in that minivan, number one in the minivan, but they've got the dress and the tux on into that little redneck barbecuing party they had going on.
Which seems like it's been going on for like years now. Like it's a nonstop barbecue that they have.
Yeah, but they never eat. Something always happens.
Something's always grilling, but nobody's ever eaten.
Yeah, so that I enjoyed that.
I also thought that the idea that the casino, right? Like, where can you take all this crime syndicate? And a casino, once again, is a really, really good metaphor of it bleeds out the poor, benefits the illegal, makes the wealthy wealthier. And Marty's stake in the casino, I believe he asked for 3%. So I always want to know, what is 3% worth? Like when I watched Mad Men and they would argue for a raise, I would go over and try to look like with inflation, how much did $2,000 more mean in 1955? So I looked up a casino. Typically, I looked at what the average like gross profit is, and then I just said, okay, let's take the profit and cut it in half for operational expenses. And then you've got all these shady people that you're paying. The way that I was able to break it down was it would come out to be, and this is monkey math, but about $9,000 a day is what 3% would bust out to. So you're looking at $9,000 a day, you're looking at about $40-something thousand a week. It ended up being a pretty sizable amount of money, but as we learn later on, he gives some of that up to the Kansas City mob for his own survival. But $9,000 a day, I mean, that's a pretty sweet payday.
Yeah, they keep giving up parts of that percentage and making the donations and things to keep the wheels greased for different parts of the plan, as it inevitably just keeps turning into more cogs and more wheels and more wrenches thrown in. That I wondered about that too, the 3%, because I don't know what it costs to live on the Gold Coast, but I mean, they're not old, they're young.
Yeah,
they've got kids. They're going to have to. They can't come back ever. They can't do anything else. They're going to have to live off that money for a very long time.
I'm doing the math right here. It's about $3.2 million a year is what $9,000 a day translates to, if my monkey math is right. So, but once you start cutting that all up, then you wonder, does he have the balls to embezzle other money? Like, what money belongs to him? So it just really goes to show, you know, when you go down that road of crime, or when you tell a lie, you know, one lie leads to lies that cover up the lie. And then next thing you know, you're so far off from the person that you wanted to be just because you told everybody one thing that wasn't true. Something else that we see in this season is Jacob Snell is the calmest murderer that you've ever met when he gets rid of the family friend Ash, but also Jacob Snell, who was just sandpaper in season 1. They're laying down a path for you start to relate him and to start to like him, and you can't even believe that you're starting to root for him.
I thought when he killed that family friend that it was going to be Darlene, that he was seeing at that point, like watching his manner. I thought that he was saying, she's fucking this up for me. I can't control her anymore. I thought he was going to turn around and kill her instead of the family friend and just do away with all of his problems right then. Because we were starting to see that he was a man who was seeing that he was going to have to give way on some of these things he had been so stubborn about to continue to make it. But he did not. He killed that friend, and I bet his blood pressure didn't even raise a bit.
Not a bit of adrenaline, business as usual. Just like if you're like, can you go get me something out of the refrigerator? Yeah, no problem. Let me just walk over there and take my poker. Oh, let me put it in a man's chest. Done. Not a big deal at all. We also, in this first episode, as we're starting to see all of the different strings get unraveled that we're going to follow for the next 10 hours, we meet Stone Cold Helen Pierce. And what a badass that woman is.
That lady, and I can't remember her actual name. She always plays somebody that keeps me so off balance watching her. She's in Jessica Jones. Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't watched that. She is the mother in that. And she's always good. And she's like Melissa Leo, who is also always good in things. But that lady, Helen Pierce, is like, I want to be Helen Pierce.
I don't want you to be Helen Pierce, but I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean? It's like she just gives no fucks is like a phrase that I hate, but she absolutely does not. She knows that she's got her clients and she knows what she needs to do for them, and she knows how to work people and get herself. And she's not lying. She's not deceiving. She's not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. She's telling you exactly what is going to happen to you.
Oh, it's all cards on the table.
Then that's what I like about her. Because that's kind of how I am. Like you said, with the lying and those things earlier, she's, I think, to be able to sleep at night, maybe even, she just is like, I am just going to be the most 100% honest and lay it all out there. And what you do is then up to you. It's not on me anymore.
Even though it's a life of crime that she's living, it seems refreshing to be that focused on what your goals are. And either you're with me or you're against me. And what I wanted to bring up about Helen is that even though this is a show about crime, what we realize in this season 1 is there's a lot. They've found a way to tap into the national narrative or the emotions that everybody's going through. And we see an enormous amount of female empowerment in this season 2. We see Wendy literally grab the reins of her life, dig in, and become most gangster out of anybody. We see Helen, who is the most fierce person in business ever. We see Darlene completely go off the rails and not back down from anybody. And we also see Ruth find her voice, as well as Charlotte tries to find her way. So there's 5 women in this series that are all coming out of the shadows of the people they work for, the men that they're tethered to. And there's a lot of really, really good, organically mixed in the story, female empowerment. They don't hit you over the head with it. It's not overtly obvious, but it was in there and I picked up on it. And after having my heart broke with the election, I was happy to go along with it. Watching this and Kavanaugh and Ford do their testimony in the same day, I was happy to go into a world where, even though it was crime and killing people, women were large and in charge of their lives. Yeah.
And what I liked is there was no wink and a nod.
Yes.
Hey, feminists.
They don't dumb it down.
Hey, sensitive ponytail men. We're doing this because this is what's going on, and we want to tell you we're with you and we're cooler than everybody else, and so we're making these storylines that go along with the times right now. It's just truthful storytelling.
Yeah.
If you went to a small town like this, you would find these women there.
Yes, you would.
If you went to a big city, you would find women like Wendy and Helen, and what works for them works in any kind of situation, whether it be the Ozarks, Chicago, the Mexican cartel, or whatever. It's a lot of feminine instincts, a lot of truth telling, and a lot of actually like just really having to watch your own back.
I really enjoyed in Friday Night Lights when the year that they moved over to DirecTV and they had to do more with less, that lined up with the economy melting down. And you're literally watching the story of a football coach who was part of the big program that they stabbed him in the back, and now he's over at the shitty school and he's trying to do more with less. They perfectly align that narrative with a lot of people like myself going through a hard financial time with the economy melting down 2008, 2009. But they didn't do it in a dumb way. And I always appreciate when you can find a way to tap into the narrative so that it's very relatable, even though it's a high school football coach or all these criminals in the Ozarks. Two last things I wanted to bring up about reparations, and then we'll cruise over to the next one, is that last shot with Sinatra playing, where Marty Bird is going through the mid-century modern home that they live in, Buddy's house, and he's just turning off all of the lights. And it just was a very peaceful moment. It showed the beauty of this house, how it should be a place of relaxation, and how they're just turning on one problem as they turn off another. And I loved that long, steady shot of just going from the width of that, because those houses were just designed in that time period. As many windows as possible, as many angles as possible, and as long as you could afford. And I just love that shot. And a takeaway quote from that first episode was, "Is this what we wanted?" And I believe Wendy asked, "Is this what we wanted?" And Marty said, "We didn't want anything." And I love that it's just, we're not in control here. I don't even know what we want anymore. We're just reacting for survival and going with what life is handing us.
Yeah, and that scene of turning off the lights is kind of just like it's like the home that they have now. And it's the same thing he might do at his own home in Chicago, is go through, check the locks, close, turn the lights off, make sure everybody's tucked in, go to bed. But so he's carrying that with him, even though this is like uncharted territory.
Hey friends, I got great news. Jack Prince has just announced free shipping site-wide, all day, every day. Standard ground shipping is now on their house. But hey, your clients don't know the shipping was free. Hint, hint. They don't call me Market Up Brickey for nothing. Every bit you save is every bit you make. Jack Prince not only has industry low prices, but now free standard shipping for all 48 states. Save money on shipping, save money by listening to Adventures in Design. Visit jackprince.com/circle of trust to save 15% off your next order. And hey, the shipping is on Jack Prince House. Visit jackprince.com/circle of trust. When we see episode 2, Reparations, it opens up with the first of many road heists. I don't know where this road is, but do not drive down this road because bad things happen to everybody. You might get a forced haircut. You might pull over to see a dead dog, or you might be a truck driver that accidentally gets his hand cut off by the Kansas City mob. That road, there's the shootout that happens later on in the season. Like much shit happens on that road that you don't want to go down it. Another thing that we see in this early on in the second episode is when you see the baby on the sidewalk next to the crazy dad. What's his name?
Mason.
Yeah. You have a vibe, and they don't hit you over the head with it, but you just know there's no way anything good is going to happen with that little baby in the mix.
No, I was very worried. I mean, we have the drowning and the drowning possible or baptism stuff. We don't know what's going on with that baby because we don't know what's going on with Mason.
Right.
He's, but a horrible situation where he's had his church that worked for him, preaching to the people on the boats, and discover that he was actually helping a heroin distribution system work, then to be taken in by Marty, have that blown up, wife killed, he's left with a son. I mean, if I'm not a person of faith, but that guy's really got to be just checking out his whole belief system right now.
Well, if you were, you would be, if you were a person of faith, you'd be like, I am on, like, God, why are you doing this to me? Like, I'm on the balls of my ass right now. Like, what do you want me to do here?
Yeah. And the Mason character, I was just always unsteady about him. I felt bad for the baby. I felt bad for the situation. But at the same time, he's out of his mind. He's crazy.
Yeah.
So who knows what he's going to do, which is another thing that Marty and Wendy are having to deal with, is another fire to put out, is Mason's craziness.
Well, that's what makes this show so good, is because there's the big idea of the casino, the cartel, the money laundering, but then there's the But then there's all these spicy personalities where you never know when a Mason Young or a Darlene Snell is going to, throw a wrench, a monkey wrench in the whole thing. And so they keep going through. And one of the things that works out pretty well is the riverboat negotiation. Now, I saw the riverboat and thought to myself, this is a pretty small riverboat. And then it made me think, are we all really going to make enough money off of this little bitty 2-story boat, 3 stories if you cover the top like they say they're going to? It's a pretty small rinky-dink boat. But we see that the politician, Charles Wilkes, has plans for the riverboat to just be the excuse that builds the resort.
Well, I wondered from the beginning anyway, because, okay, we're going to make all our money from this casino.
Right.
Well, it's in the Ozarks, which there's like gambling boats in Memphis. There's one in Evansville, Indiana, which is near me, Louisville. I've been to the casinos in Vegas. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, the Ozarks gets a lot of traffic, yes,
right.
But we down here in Kentucky, we got Land Between the Lakes. I mean, it's the same kind of place. Did you ever go to Land Between the Lakes when you were okay? It's almost exactly like that, Ozarks town, the
right.
little resorts, and it's all small time economy. It's big for them during the season, but at the same time, during the season, is that thing going to make enough money to support everybody? So Marty's 3% is going to be a lot smaller than maybe those casinos that you were doing the math on. But anyway, yes, when she went to get the boat, I thought he's sending one little girl, Ruth, up there to get a riverboat, and then we see it, and it's like a rinky-dink paddle boat kind of thing in horrible shape. And I didn't get it with that. Yeah, I thought that was odd. Maybe do a little bit of green screening for us and create something more majestic.
I mean, I don't know too if you have the ability that you get on like a Disneyland type trip, like you load on the riverboat, but then there's like a barge that sits on the backside of it that's just basically more space to grow. I mean, the whole reason why they do gambling on the water is to get outside of the law anyways. It's one of those wink, wink. Well, if you gamble on the water, then technically we can give you a permit. So it's one of those weird negotiation tactics. But speaking of negotiating, we see Buddy, his health was always pretty inconsistent in season 1. He's still sick as shit, but he's having these moments of like, he's having good days, and it's what he chooses to do with his good days. And we get to see him be Buddy the negotiator when he takes Marty to go talk to the guy who's in charge of the union. And we see that, like all old people, if you take the time to sit down and talk to them, they were young once. They were hellraisers. They were people that got in fights. They fucked people. They had their own life of crime. But you see people in the road and they look innocent, but they were all maniacs like us at one point in their life. And this really gives us a good look into Buddy the negotiator when he just fucks with guys like, tell your wife I said hi.
Yeah. I enjoyed that, getting to see them go on that little road trip to we went to like the standard typical like union boss's office,
right,
which was another thing that I liked. And that guy with the typical, low level criminal looking like a good guy as part of the Teamsters kind of thing. But back to Buddy with his stories is also what you'll find with oldsters is if they start telling you those stories, then you start going, how did you live?
Yeah.
How are you still alive?
How'd you make it this far?
Like if you talk to my dad, who is now 82, he'll start telling you just out of the blue, things will start popping up like, oh yeah, that time that I got in that card game with that Kansas City policeman, ended up leaving with his car and his girl and his gun, things like that. And it's like, what life were you living?
Yeah. But you just see the old person, and it's hard to believe that they were young once too. And when you're young, you're a maniac. And we get to see that, that sort of deal go down. And Buddy brokers the deal with the Kansas City mob now. And
I think he enjoyed being able to show Marty also, hey, smart guy from the city, I was somebody.
Yes.
I have a value. I can do this. You right now are out of your league.
Right.
You need me.
Right. I'm not just a guy that needs oxygen or needs to stop and take a breath. Like I can make things happen as well, which I found to be like a really interesting part of everybody in season 2 is going for it. There's no more like, oh, well, this is where's this plot line going, or what's the purpose of this person? Like everybody is worth their weight in gold. We see Wendy trapped a politician by taking the opportunist stripper from the club, putting them in there. There's a weird sexapade that goes on. It's all perfectly orchestrated. You can see that she's having fun playing the political game and the crime game all at once. And speaking of the crime game, for no reason at all, Ruth's dad just decides to knock over a diner. Just to almost like, you know how a cutter would cut themselves to feel alive? And that's the reason for the pain. He just pulls over and knocks over that diner just because he can, just because he wants to show her, I can make money too. I don't need my fucking daughter's handout, even though she's trying to set up for him honest work, an honest living. He doesn't want it. He's a criminal.
Well, yeah, he doesn't want the honest work. And then he also doesn't see as far as the big payoff that if Ruth gets in and stays in with Marty and ends up, taking over this business, which is kind of where they're leading this to, he's going to be part of that.
Right.
But that's part of that, like I said, smartest redneck in the room. I'll show you. And he just walks in there and does he blow that guy just away with the gun? I believe in that.
He pistol slaps him. I mean, it's a pretty low level crime. Like he just walks in, hits the guy with the gun. The woman runs out of the way and he just pulls out the register. And you think, your daughter's going to be able to get you some serious money. A diner at 2 a.m. You did all this for what? $180? $250 if you're lucky.
And wasn't there another customer that just walked in and was kind of like, just happened here?
What's going on? What did I just walk into?
Yeah, and she sees at that point that it's just a lost cause. She's not going to be able to help him, and he's not taking her help.
So in that scene, we are also in this episode, The Precious Blood of Jesus, we see Marty give way to the union. So now his percentage is smaller, and we see Wendy work in the relationship with the politician or the lobbyist guy, Charles Wilkes.
Yep.
And at the end, there's sort of that indecent proposal. Now, Marty found a video of his wife fucking another man. And I think that he had this deviant pleasure of watching it because he watched the video one too many times just to make sure it was actually his wife. Like there was some sort of pleasure that came from that. So when she comes back from meeting with Wilkes and she's basically like, oh, he wanted me to sleep with her, he just goes, and? Almost,
it was kind of like, so did you?
Yeah, did you? Almost as if he wanted her to. And she just gives him the cold shoulder, hops in the shower, and he's like, so was that a no? Like the most level-headed you could ever be with giving up, your wife to another man, to where it's like, do you now enjoy this? Is this a part of you? Or are you just that removed from everything that it's whatever we need to do to survive? And if you have to have sex with somebody, so be it. Who am I to judge?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think he's in a roll with the punches, zig when they zag mindset right now. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And, she already told him in the first season, just as a matter of factly, sometimes people sleep with people they're not married to.
Mm-hmm.
They had that fight in the car about that thing. And I looking back now, I'm just like, I should have known what she was capable of in this second season based on that conversation right there.
Right.
She was just able to compartmentalize that for him and for herself, and that's going to do her a great service in this season. We
also, at the very end of it all, is we see that Rachel, who owned the restaurant.
Can we pause and talk about Rachel for a second?
Go ahead.
That character is so messed up, but she is so hot.
I knew she had your name written all over. I knew that was one for you.
Oh my goodness. That and it's that actress had been in another show I'd watched years ago where she was like a ditzy blonde character. It was called My Boys. I don't know if you ever remember that.
No.
Jim Gaffigan was in this show with her. It was like a TBS sitcom. That tells you how bad it probably was. So I immediately recognized her face and picked up on this, and I was like, oh, okay. So I love when I see somebody that I like from other shows pop up in a thing that is not typecast for them.
Right.
So anyway, that character, I mean, she's I like her, but I really hated the path she went on in this season.
She's attractive.
Yes.
And just broken enough to where you feel like you can fix her.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I feel really bad for feeling this way, but you're hitting it right on the head.
And you see once Marty says later on, and we'll talk about this, like I've got you set up. That's all she needed. Like somebody cares about me and she's willing to just give it all up right then and there. She just, She just wants to be loved. And when you meet somebody that's in that position, you can see how you can take advantage of them in any different way because they literally just want somebody to love them so they can learn how to love themselves. And she is as vulnerable can be, and a heartbreaking character.
The bad part about that vulnerability is somebody with bad intentions like Agent Petty,
Yes.
the FBI agent, also honed right in on that.
Easy mark.
I can go in and just, she will do whatever I say because she is so fragile that I can bully and scare the shit out of her and put her in all these life-threatening situations.
Yeah.
I mean, Marty could have, if he was a different person, said, "You're about to fuck my shit up and I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
Or tell the right person that you're doing these things and you will be dead. Yeah, heartbreaking character, but you read me perfectly. You knew that I would fall for her.
Oh, I knew that one had your name written all over it. All right. Once a Langmore is episode 3. And where we see in here is Marty finally kind of has it out with Cade. Cade's been going through his daughter, Ruth. Sort of Ruth's been offering everything. And Marty's just like, look, I'm giving you straight work, a real opportunity to come clean. Just be half an adult and everything will fall into place. Your daughter's going to make a ton of money. We're all going to win big here. He's basically saying, just don't get in my way. But the look on Cade's face was like, oh, like I'm going to work. He's a true sociopath because he believes he's above the law. He's above all the dumb things that people like you and I do to make a living. Like, it really shows why he's wired to be a criminal. He always has been, always will be, and nobody's going to change it.
No, I mean, that's, his brother Russ, that we haven't mentioned yet, but also it seems like he maybe could have been a good guy if Cade wasn't his brother.
They all could be better people if Cade wasn't the patriarch of the family. He literally is one of those black holes that you meet in life that just sucks in everything and anyone that's around him.
Yeah, and you can't tell if it's actual like family blood ties that make the people so beholden to him, or if they actually look up to him, or if it's fear. Who knows? It's when you have somebody bad in your family because they're family, you give them this pass and it just becomes Stockholm syndrome, you're better off not having them around, but you fall a victim to their mind meld and they somehow they own you. Later on in that episode, everybody has so many ulterior motives that just going out and hunting with Jacob Snell can go 1,000 different ways. And that hunting scene where they really pressure, little innocent Jonah into his first kill. And, he shoots probably a 12-point buck, which good luck finding that your first time out in the woods. Right.
That hunting scene, you had no idea when you're watching it, but the overhead shot, probably a drone shot of when the deer dies and the way that Jacob treats the animal, and he's this, horrible person, but he has this respect, the legacy, the tradition of hunting and how you respect the animal and the thing that he does with the blood on Jonah's face. That overhead shot is the exact shot that we see when he too falls, just like the deer in the woods. Right.
I think that's his character is to show that the way he treats the deer and the way he's initiating Jonah into this is the same way that like he and his family have felt about everything always.
Yeah.
They're into a legacy. They're into, this is how we do it. These are the rites and rituals. And this is our way. And then they bring it and tie it around to, we see the dying animal. And then whenever he is killed later, he's in that same position.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, I don't know how to say this, but like he didn't get the respect he should have gotten in the way he was killed and who he was killed by.
Yeah. I also think that we realize that, Cade Langmore is just a born criminal. When we look at Jacob Snell, he's a criminal, but he has a code of honor. Like, if you go against him and his family, then he would be forced to do things that are bad. And he can justify them because it goes against his code. But at least he has a code of what he sees as being wrong and right versus just the sociopath behavior of, I can't stay within the law because I feel that I'm above the law. We also see the father's son, or the father's crimes passed down to the son, or the father sins, I guess is the way it's normally said. When we see Jonah the launderer be born, when he goes into the bank, puts $5,000 into a money, he's basically imitating the behavior of his dad and also trying to put some money in a safe spot because he's a kid and he's worried about where's all this going to go. I know when my dad lost his job and we were living on unemployment and nobody explained to me what unemployment was, that wrecked me for the rest of my life because I kept thinking that the bank's going to come and kick us out of our home because nobody told me your dad doesn't have a job, but you still get a paycheck from your unemployment every Friday. I just thought we're out of money. We're going to be fucking homeless any day now.
Yeah. Well, kids, it's a cliche, but kids want structure. They want to feel safe. And he wasn't getting any structure, any bit of safeness. He sees his parents both spinning. He's smart enough. He's a smart kid, well above his years, smart enough to see that this could go bad. Yeah. I need to start taking care of myself right now. And he's very well built for it. But I think that he had to question himself over that kill that affected him.
100%.
In a way he didn't think that it would. Because, we had the early obsession with the sharks.
Right.
And then the guns around the house and all that stuff. And so, when it came down to it, I think then he had to question himself.
Well, and his mom wanted him to shoot somebody at the end of season 1. And I think it put into context how he would have felt had that been successful and he'd been a trigger man that day. The season or the episode ends with a really powerful scene of Ruth Langmore letting the Bobcats go. She lets them out of the pen, and her quote to him is, "Your fucking choice." And you know that this is so symbolic because she feels like she never had a choice. She's embedded in this family of crime and criminals. She feels committed to Wyatt and 3. She also feels a fucked up, commitment to her dad and has the guilt of killing her uncles. It's just, if I can give these Bobcats a choice that I never had to be free, I'm going to do it. And the Bobcats also represent the two deaths. That's who they belong to, was Boyd and what's his name? Russ.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the end of a chapter by letting those two little Bobcats go.
Yeah, she's like, because they hesitated, I think, in the cage, and you're just kind of looking at her like, we can go, and then she's like, your choice, do it, because she didn't have that choice. You're dead on with that assessment.
Episode 4 is Stag, and it opens up with that beautiful mid-century modern motel that Roy Petty's staying in. Mm-hmm. And it's just multiple levels. It has all the colored doors, has all the windows. It's just that beautiful mid-century modern look. And you know that this is something that was built for a booming vacation season years ago. And I always remember staying in these hotels, these motels, like on the road down to Orlando, and they're all built and they're just these capsules out of time. Like now people have gone through and they've given them the Ace Hotel treatment and they've sort of saved them and made them cool again. But it's one of those things in my life. I felt like every time I saw mid-century modern stuff, it was beat up, it was worn down, but I always got the promise of the future or the promise of better times before me. And you see this mid-century modern hotel, and it opened up with that powerful scene where it's all cut to the opening of Dragnet. And so we're seeing him live through probably a time that he felt was the golden era of Johnny Law. And so there's just these monumental, milestones of everybody's looking at the past like those people had all the answers, but we know that they were just as fucked up as we are today.
Yeah, those hotels are a lure for me because as much as I like the modern comforts of a nice hotel, you and I love hotel living.
Oh, yeah.
I also enjoy the look and the nostalgia of those hotels. And if I weren't like a germ nut and a clean freak these days, I would probably stay in those on a trip, but I'll just appreciate them. But yeah, looking back, that's part of the thing also about the seasons on this show is like we have the renewed joy of the summer. Yeah. And then this season is mostly, it all stays in the off season, correct?
Yeah.
Season 2.
It pretty much is just I think all of this wild shit takes place in maybe 2.5 months in the fall.
Yeah, and as you said, like the trees are bare. Everything seems like it's raining a lot. It's cold. It doesn't have the promise that we felt in that first season of the summer. And we're seeing everybody's ideas about what the good times kind of were, and that's what I think we're getting with that Dragnet stuff with him. But that's a problematic character for me. I'm sure we'll discuss that later more about Petty, because he's a strange character.
He is, and they maybe put too much into one man. You know, he's a closeted homosexual that is wrestling with that, and he's got the mom that's on drugs, and so he's got that demon, and he's a dirty cop, but he still does his job. Like, there's maybe too much poured into one character. But later on in this episode is we see at the end, the FBI raid, we see Petty come out, because he's been living in this town kind of undercover. And, there was the moment when Jonah Bird had the shotgun and could have taken him out when he found him in the field. So that FBI raid, it really, really brings him out and brings this character into where he's a complex character, but now he's living one life instead of many. And that kind of simplifies him a little bit. And this is the first time that he really kind of gets to embrace just being a detective and not living a double life.
Yeah, I think you hit on maybe what bothers me about him is it's too much character for this to live in one person.
Yeah.
Like you said, we have the gay stuff. We have the, it seems like he wants to be the good lawman, but he's also maybe a little imbalanced because he's obsessed with the things he sees as like immigration, crime, drugs, all the dirtiness of society. I almost feel like that maybe is like a mirror to his own like closeted gay self-loathing.
Yeah.
And makes him such an asshole where he can just use anyone, as he does use Rachel, and threaten people and put them in crazy situations because he's living crazy. He's like a adrenaline junkie for all these bad behaviors.
Yeah.
I just don't like this character. He's going to be low on my list, but
interesting. One of the things that I enjoyed about the FBI raid is the irony of this lake house. There's a lot of scenes that take place in this living room, and this living room is beautiful. It has all these windows. You can see the trees, you can see the lake. Like, this was a living room that back in the day, Buddy comes from that time period when a man could have a job, make enough money, buy a home, buy a second home, plan to retire. You could get land on the water. Like, it was literally what the older generation believes when America was great, when things were affordable and you could make stuff happen. And all of the contentious stress and just the worst aspects of life that happen in this living room. I love the irony of life being at its worst in a place when life is supposed to be at its best. This home was designed for relaxation. Nobody's relaxed in this home once in the last couple of months.
Nobody's relaxing in it. And also, I get the feeling that, like, I would think that Wendy and the kids and Marty would be like, this place is a dump. I feel like they think it's a dump.
Oh, I love that house. I would die to have that house.
I love it too, but they come from Chicago and they have the whatever there, and in the apartments and the businesses. And I just feel like I just thought it was an odd thing for them to move into that house. But she did, when she came up to it the first time with the realtor, she said, "Oh, this is out of my budget." So I guess she does appreciate it. But yeah, the thing is that it's supposed to be like the American dream.
Yes.
But they're living the American crime.
Yeah, the nightmare in the dream home. Yeah. And once again, we're seeing Wendy really embrace her life of crime when she's able to sniff out that Grateful Dead ticket setup. She puts all the pieces together when Marty was eager to go in. She's like, he's in a hotel room. He hasn't unpacked his bags. He's not saying enough. He's not giving us any body language back. Like, this is a bad deal. Let's get up and let's get out. And once again, Wendy embracing her new life is she sees Jonah reading an adult story to a very, very sick buddy. And she goes, this is inappropriate. Get out of here. Go to bed. Tell him good night. And then she sits down and picks up the book and starts reading to him a story of, I believe, a woman having sex. Like, she gazed up at the ceiling and like, she just is like, this is my life now, man. I'll read him this fucking dirty book and give this old guy maybe one last boner.
Yeah, and she didn't lecture him for, that's Jonah's a little boy, you shouldn't be doing that or any of that. She's just, again, she's also starting to roll with the punches.
Yes.
Whatever's going on. I think she also has a growing respect for Buddy and sympathy. And she, we forget about the fact that he's dying. He's very sick, but he's on a limited time there. And I think that she's starting to feel things, a respect for him, a friendship, and then knowing that, like, when you have a sick relative or someone who that you're going to be losing, she's starting to think differently about him. And I love that that's going to play into like a little partnership for the two of them in some hijinks. The part with the Grateful Dead tickets. Yeah, but Marty was like, wait a minute, we're not doing this? We're leaving? Wait a minute, with this, we're in. He didn't even pick it up.
No.
And she did. And so she probably got a little thrill off of that too, like, oh, you would have fucked this up, because they're getting at each other at this point in the show a little bit too.
She's really the inspiration that you can take from this character is the more that you lean into your life, the more that you enjoy it. The more you try to fight and be someone that you're not, in somewhere that you don't exist, you're always going to be swimming upstream. But the more that she embraces this chaos, the more in control she becomes, and the happier she becomes. She begins to enjoy everything that once she was fighting against. And when you fight, all you do is exhaust yourself. It's like, what do they tell you when you're drowning? Like, you have to relax. You have to swim. You have to breathe. You have to go with the current. The harder you fight, the harder you fail, and
turn into the skid.
Yeah. And she's in this moment. Now, to me, the takeaway scene from this episode 4, Stag, is Russ Langmore playing Penny Royalty on the acoustic guitar.
Oh, I love that scene. I
mean, it gave me goosebumps. Obviously, Wyatt is seeing the best version of his dad, and that's what we do when people die. Because he was a very troubled man, but probably had a better heart than his brother. But him playing David Bowie, but more in the Nirvana style, it just fucking, what a great, to just be able to put that in the middle of all of this, that little bit of peace and a brokenhearted boy trying to remember the best qualities of his dad, or maybe make his dad somebody better than he was so that he can believe in him. What a great fucking scene.
For me, in real life, when someone that I don't know can play the guitar, like picks up a guitar and starts playing it,
it's always
impressive,
like, right?
It's always like, whoa! I just put you up a few notches.
Well, you have a sweet tooth for the rock and roll too.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, if he'd have played, Skinnerd, maybe I wouldn't have loved that scene so much. But yeah, I like that we're seeing him work through his issues. And we're not having to have him just whine and talk about them with Ruth the whole time, which is a problem for me with Wyatt. Is I don't care for his character either. For just that adolescent whine, and his face is constantly like resting pout face.
Yeah,
I mean there's not a positive thing. He's not contributing anything. He's just stuck in this angst that he's got going on. So that was a nice little relief, and I did enjoy those scenes. And yeah, like I said, anybody picking up a guitar and strumming it, and then that choice of song, and we start to see that character maybe the way he sees him.
Choice of song and how well he has a great voice. I'm like, of course he has a good singing voice. He has an amazing talking voice. Like his speaking voice is amazing. Of course he's going to be able to sing and nail that out. The next episode is called Game Day, and it opens up, the FBI has raided the home, and we see the family, the Birds, alone on the front lawn. And there's something that happens when you go through a disaster. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, you don't want to be going through it, but it has a way of bringing people together. And the symbolism of the family outside of their makeshift home, but also not in the community, it really shows these 4 individuals came from Chicago, found nothing but chaos, but they're somehow bonding together as a family, and they're working through everything. And in the first season, Charlotte had too much of that teen angst. What I hated about The Sopranos is how much they focused on the angst of Meadow Soprano and Anthony Jr. Mm-hmm. You can sometimes overplay that card and it becomes so fucking annoying to everybody. And we're seeing Charlotte, for the moment, pull back. We're seeing Jonah just try to do what he can. Like, if we're now a family of criminals, I'm going to master the art of crime. Wendy is going with the flow. Marty is almost shocked that everybody's kind of on this with them. Like, that scene of them out on the lawn by themselves, I thought that was a really, really powerful scene. And it's halfway through and you're seeing the family work together. And I think that was a big decision on season 2, is they're actually this band of criminals. They're working together instead of ripping each other apart for the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of like after a home, like they had almost a home invasion there.
Yes.
Where they were being robbed while they were at home. You know, if you get robbed and you come back and all of your stuff's been rifled through and you feel violated. And
right.
So they're out there, and bonding is exactly what they were doing. And I think the kids are pulling back because in the first season, there was still a hope of, this is all going to work itself out. We're just going to go home.
Right. We're going to get back to our friends.
Or we're going to go to a new place and leave this shitty place and have some other new life. Now they're like, we may just be stuck here, or we don't know what's going to happen. So we got to straighten our shit up.
Yeah. That's exactly where they're starting to realize that I can choose to be a victim or I can be a survivor. And one's a lot easier than the other. The irony, though, is as we see the birds out on their front lawn, we also see the Snells out on their lawn, and the land is starting to get ripped up and surveyed for this construction. And Darlene is pissed about it. They're not bonding. You know, they're in a similar situation of feeling violated, and it's pulling them apart instead of bringing them together. She's mad about everything and mentions we're going to have to see this on our morning walks every day for the rest of our lives. Which, once again, is such great foreshadowing that she makes sure that they don't have to see this on their morning walks. And it really lays down that they have this land, they enjoy the beauty of it, and as a couple, that doesn't really seem like they have to work because they're financially set from their opium growing and all their different illegal ways of earning money, that they get up and they walk through their land, and it's their ritual, and it's something they look forward to. And Jacob says, I'm reminding you, ill humor in the morning brings about a darkened day.
Yeah.
Which is goddamn everything that's going to happen to him just a couple episodes away. So they've really built up this Jacob Snell murder scene. Now, this is the second time that we've seen a lot of alluding to this happening. And I felt like the juxtaposition of both families, you know, out on their lawn, but having two different vibes in the foreshadowing of Jacob's death. What a great season of TV. Damn, I wish I hadn't seen it so I could enjoy it for the first time all over again.
Well, the birds are rolling with the punches and doing what they have to do to survive. Darlene Snell is dug in. She does not want to change.
Yes.
She wants things to always be the way they are. She's that person that has that grudge and cannot let it go. I mean, how many times does she bring up, you know, what they did to us on this land and flooding the land,
right?
Our ancestors, and she is not going to go along with any of these plans. She'll say she will, but the minute that it hits her in her pride, she's not changing. And Jacob is smart enough to know that he's going to have to give some.
That's why we start to love him, because he,
yes,
a man who would never bend in season 1, is starting to show, guess what? Everybody gets beaten at the game of life sometimes. And the way that you really win is you adapt and you deal with the cards that you're dealt, and you move on. And she is not doing that. And by the way, their life is fine. I know their land got flooded out and they lost some land, but they're living a pretty fucking great life, those two.
Yeah, they just have that personality trait of, you know, can't get over something. I mean, I can hold a grudge with the best of them.
Oh, yes, you can.
Don't get me wrong.
World class.
Yeah, once I'm done with someone, it's a horrible trait. You are dead to me. You are gone. And for Darlene, it's the same thing. Everyone is dead to her if it's not her or their family or someone that she has some sort of attachment to. And we can we start getting that she's not over him killing the family friend who I cannot remember his name. Ash. Yeah. We knew that was going to be bad when he did that.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to also take us into she needed a replacement. She's got a hole there now, something that needs to be filled.
Right.
And so you're starting to see a woman who doesn't like change, is dug in, thinks everyone that's an outsider is an enemy, and doesn't really trust anyone, and starting to not trust Jacob. It's a real bad storm getting ready to come.
And Jacob's he's doing all of this bending and kind of giving up because he sees the benefit of the long term. He knows they're going to have more money than they can ever deal with. He knows that they're going to be set for life and that a lot of their problems are going to go away and that they can basically skim off the casino and not have to be a part of the heroin trade, which any day you're a moment away from getting busted and losing it all. So he really sees this as a way to get freedom, but she can only focus on what she's given up versus what she's getting. She can't understand bird in a hand.
The small-time, short-sighted criminals don't look for the legitimate game.
Yeah.
He's looking, but the smart criminals are always like, how can we either legitimize what we're doing or somehow make money off other people's legitimate work?
Right.
And that's where he's seeing, but he's never going to convince her of that because she's a woman that cannot see past herself.
So we go from family on the lawn to the Snells on the lawn, symbolism of when Jacob's going to die. And then we go into this conversation with Wendy and Buddy. And Wendy is caught up in all of the stress of today. She's in her mid-40s. She has 2 kids. She has all this stress going on, and she's caught up in the micro view. But Buddy, at the end of his life, he can see the macro. He can see it all for the moving pieces that it is. And he can look back on his life and realize when he was stressed for no reason, when he was beating himself up over and how it doesn't matter. And he says to her, when you think you're going to die yesterday, the day is sweet. You can lose your shit tomorrow because today's another day to fall apart. And he really kind of gives her this peace of mind of everything that you're killing yourself about right now. It's not going to matter in the end. So just calm down and just enjoy it for what it is and take control of your shit, woman. Like, get in there, take control of it. And that little piece of confidence that he gives her.
It's a gift he gives her.
Yeah, a gift of literally the only way that you can see your life at the very end. My Momo gave me that gift, and I it was really the only time in my life I've ever been so close with somebody that was going to die that you could kind of get that wisdom that you only get at the end.
I don't know if you know this. My mom died at 61.
Yeah.
Ridiculously young.
Yeah.
I was 31. So
did she seem young at the time to you, or did that seem pretty old? Like, if I could make it to 61, that'd be great.
No, when her health failed and we were in the situation seeing that, something was wrong, I then was smacked in the face with how young she was.
Okay.
Because I started seeing that I was 31. That's the age she was when she had me.
Yeah.
Those things start to click. Her death is the most horrible thing that happened to me, but it's given me a huge gift of, I look back and I say, these are the things that my mom worried about every day.
Yeah.
Money.
Yep.
How to get, everything done in a day.
Yeah.
How to keep everyone else working and happy and together and make sure that everyone else is okay. And she never, ever, ever took a minute to care for herself.
She was a woman of her time.
And yes, exactly. And I think that that contributed to a lot of her issues that led her to an early death. So I have to stop myself sometimes and say, my mother worried about money her whole life. And the day she died, all that worry, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't an issue. The things that she struggled with every day, they don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not in a better position because of what she did to on a daily basis for money or the house or keeping everything lined out, making appointments and keeping things scheduled. It didn't do anything. She wasn't happy for a large portion of her life. So that gave me the gift of, like, that Buddy gave there, to say, you're not going to worry about this stuff later. It's not going to matter.
Yeah.
So I really empathized with that conversation.
I think anybody that's ever been able to have one of those conversations with somebody that's now at a moment where they know they got a lot less time ahead of them than they do behind them. There's just a clarity that they have, and it's a real honor to be close to somebody that can actually give a little bit of that wisdom to you. And I'm sure that those conversations will only ring more in our head as we see ourselves, when you kind of feel like, yeah, I'm probably winding it all up. In this episode, I think we're at the 6th episode here. So we're really, we're in that middle part of the season when Petty tries to shame Wendy for fucking another man and for doing this and for doing that. She doesn't wink an eye. And you can tell that this is a woman that's now anything that she used to be ashamed of, she's owning it. She's not ashamed of shit. And she's like, how dare you come here and try to shame me? Fuck you. Get off of our land. And she takes ownership of the house for the first time. Get off of our fucking property and get the fuck out of here. Who the fuck do you think that you are? She just, at that moment, she used to annoy me. She was like the thorn in the side. Like, Marty's got everything to worry about. He doesn't need you fucking also like chirping away and nagging at him. I fell in love with her. I love a woman that's in charge. I love a strong female. And I'm like, God damn, I love Wendy. Let me see that video again of her getting fucked from behind.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's people say, oh, living authentically or living in your truth. It's all laid out. She got nothing to hide anymore.
Nope.
You can't hurt her. What you say can't. She's done and said the worst things to Marty. So him finding out about anything about her, it doesn't matter. She knows they've survived a lot of crazy shit, and this guy trying to come and get in her business, she's not having it. And that is, that's like that strong. I could see where, you were probably like, whoa, lady boner going on right here.
I fucking love it. And here's the thing that, I've always been irritated with this, and society's kind of catching up with it. But I hated in high school that a guy that fucks a lot of girls is considered cool, but a girl that fucks a lot of guys is considered a slut. And the girl that I first fell for, she had a reputation of being around. And I thought, what a fucking bullshit double standard this is, And so in this scene, I love when a woman says, you're not going to shame me. You're not going to look down on me. So what? I fucked around. What are you guilty of? And he is, as in most cases, guilty of much fucking worse. So I love a woman that has no bones about anything, including her sexuality. And he's trying to do a little bit of sex shaming here with her. And she's like, no, we're not going to play this fucking game. My husband's fucking seen it. And she even calls him out like, why did you keep that video? What bizarre pleasure were you getting off of this? And she's not going to have shit from anybody at this moment in her life. I loved it.
Yeah, Petty is the worst guy to be able to come up and try to shame anybody for anything with the crazy shit that the way he's used people and made poor little old Russ Langmore fall in love with him and then use him and essentially get him killed. And we've been seeing it coming up, and I think that was her actual light switch moment for the show. Yeah.
From that moment on, she doesn't back down from anybody or anything. And as Marty starts to crumble from all the stress, and arguably, why not? He had a head start on knowing how fucked they were. Yeah. So it's all starting to catch up with him. It's one of those things where, this with Stacy, whenever you're weak, you want the other person to be strong. And whenever they're weak, you want to have the ability to be strong. And this is why it's such a great series of TV about what it means to be married and what it means to be a partner, because literally he's crumbling right as she's rising like a phoenix and she's getting ready to take over. The episode ends with Ruth getting waterboarded. I might have clapped for that one. Don't want to give away her position in my countdown coming up in part 2, but she's not my favorite person. And when you're at the end and you're getting ready to die, and you've seen this with your dogs, you probably saw this with your mother. I know I saw this with my Momo. You kind of get that last good day, And I remember when my dog Baxter, who was my BFF in the lost years, he kind of had a really good day before the day he fell down in the backyard and couldn't get up. And Buddy out there getting into crime, being smart enough to like, I'm going to take the gas. I'm going to put it in the water. I'm just going to drive over their fucking poppy field. I'm going to spread gasoline everywhere, and then I'm going to throw a match and watch it all fucking burn down. That was his last good day.
I even said to Stacy I said he's having his last hurrah here. He's having that thing where before you die, you bounce back and everybody thinks everything's going to be okay. You're going to be good. And I said this is just his last go round as getting a thrill here. Yeah. And I recognized that, but it was good to watch because I liked Buddy.
I did too, and I like the idea that death won't happen in a bed. It won't be this long, grueling thing that maybe you can take life by the horns one last time and sort of do whatever it is that you're good at. And his instance is like fucking people over, getting a little bit of that old guy revenge. I loved it. But what we don't love is in the next episode, Outer Darkness, they get rid of the poppies so that they don't find that it's drug land, because then the DEA is going to come in there and seize all the land and the casino will go back on pause and the birds are going to lose their life. But now we find that there's bones in the field. So it's like you get rid of it's that tile game, where you're trying to make the puzzle come together, and it's like, okay, I got the eyes of the tiger together, but now the mouth's stuck in the corner, and you're always giving up one piece of the puzzle to make something else happen. And now we have the problem with the bones. And the episode opens up with Buddy just kind of like talking, and he dies in the car. And it's really a beautiful moment of, he didn't know when he was going to die. He didn't have to do it in a bed. Like it couldn't have worked out better for him. And he was a great character. And I was immediately like, fuck, the show's going to be forever different without him in it, because he added just a layer of like humor,
realness,
context, like it's not as bad as you think. Like no matter what they were going through, he was just kind of like, whatever, like you'll figure a way out of it. You always do.
Yeah. Like the grandpa, wisdom reality check was going to be gone with him.
Yeah.
And I did like the way they did that scene. I mean, when the camera comes over and they're having the conversation back and forth, and then it just sits on Wendy for a little too long, and you're like, oh no, we're going to go back over and he's dead. It was sad,
but well put together. Like, well constructed. When Marty goes and visits Jacob Snell in jail, he gets the idea of the bones. You have your crooked cop who's on payroll. Can we switch out the bones and have it be, well, this is family land, and we're country folk. Country boy can't survive. We bury our own, son. We ain't these city boys that needs to put them in a box. Like, we take care of our own, and we have for a couple 100 years. So it's weird how Marty's like, repeat that. Jacob being stubborn is like, I won't. I already said it once. He said, no, repeat it. The answer to everything is in what you just said. And it just goes to show how Marty Byrde he's just a really bright guy, and he's taking his mathematical mind and he's using it in ways that he probably never knew that he was capable of. And I love seeing a character be like, oh, I'm kind of good at this too.
Yeah, Marty Byrde's mind must be like those when you go to those colleges where people are writing those letters, shapes, numbers, shit up on the board, the kind of calculations it takes to get the rocket to the moon, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, is this hieroglyphics? I don't know what you guys are doing. I didn't learn this in the algebra class. I don't know what this is. His mind is constantly doing that with crime.
Yeah. And he's amazing at it. He's got it all figured out. Buddy's funeral is a pretty interesting moment because it kind of reminds me of a Quentin Tarantino scene where everybody shows up at once and everybody starts shooting. Like we saw that for the first time in what's the movie that he Brad Pitt and
True Romance.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
True Romance is the first time we see the famous Quentin Tarantino thing where in that hotel you got the drug dealers, you got the cartel, you got the
coming
police.
Coming home in body bags.
Yeah, and everybody just starts shooting at each other, and we've seen that in a lot of his films. This is the funeral version of that. You've got the cartel, you've got the Kansas City mob, you've got the people in the town, like you got all these people coming together for the funeral, and it really shows Buddy and how he was such a beloved character. And I love when Jonah says, I set this up. I called all these people because I found his paper wheel.
Yeah.
And his dad goes, "You mean a Rolodex?"
Rolodex?
Like, of course, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid would have no idea what a Rolodex is and would call it a paper wheel. I thought that was like, I love when dark shows can always find a way to put good humor in it. And I thought that was a standout, funny moment of the season.
Yeah. One time when when Tanner was younger, we were at a thrift store or something, and there was an old, dial phone there. And I was like, "How do you think you make a call on that?" And he was like, "Make a call on it? It's not a phone." I'm like, yeah, it's a phone. I thought he would be like, get it, but he didn't even have the concept that it was a phone. So
yeah, well, let me explain. You take the 7 all the way around, and then you let it slide back. Then you grab the 3, and you let it go all the way around. Like, what a barbaric way to communicate with somebody. This episode, Outer Darkness, it ends with Rachel making the make-out move with Marty, and then she unbuttons her shirt. Connie gets excited. We see a little bit of cleavage, but we see a whole lot of microphone. And it was her way of kind of, you got to help me out here. I'm in this spot. I'm in over my head. And poor Rachel, I mean, life's just getting her from every direction. And she's really a victim of so many circumstances, some her own, some just being in the wrong place. But she tries her best to come clean. And I thought that was a pretty sweet moment. And you can tell that Marty, he's torn, but he also, like, with all the stress going on, a little sexual tension to get out, seems to be doing him just fine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that scene was a little crazy. Yeah, it was sad for her though. Like, here she is exposing herself in more ways than one. Yeah. Like, I'm physically exposed, but at the same time, when she does that, then it opens up the door of like, look, I've got myself in a position, and now to get out of it, I had to do this. And now I need more help.
Right.
More help. She's just a girl that needs more help.
Right.
So that was really well acted on Jason Bateman's part and her part. I liked that whole thing there because everybody was acting out of character, but then it wasn't. It brought it right back around.
Yeah, and it was just the perfect amount of stress, sexual tension, innocence, guiltiness. Like, it was just like exactly how you would think it would be if you're in this bizarre moment where you're living a life of crime, you don't know what's going on, you're kissing somebody who's not your partner. Like, it was about as perfectly fucked up as you would probably feel in that situation. The next episode, One Way Out, it starts with the interview. It's another disruptive episode where the timeline is a little bent around, and it starts with this interview while they're trying to portray themselves as the perfect family, because, when you're making that casino money, you're now going to be a part of the community, and you have to show a certain amount of respectability because everybody's respecting you with this honor and all of this responsibility. And if we thought that Wendy was getting ready to take control, this is the moment where Marty's hitting the skids. We don't know why in this moment. We don't know that he's just committed his first murder. Mm-hmm. We don't know that, he now knows that the feds are closing in on him and that there's the wire and that things could be much worse than what he thought. But literally, like we talked about earlier, this is him collapsing and falling apart, and Wendy just standing there like a boss. Just, I got this. Right, Marty? Right? Just like passing him the ball and totally taking care of him while he falls apart.
Yeah, this is where she starts to, I believe, they've always had that check with me about this before you do it. Let me know. Don't sign anything without me. Don't make any decisions. Right. And she goes rogue.
Yes. And rightfully so, because she can tell that Marty's starting to collapse from all the stress. And like I said, he had a head start on dealing with all of this. She's relatively kind of new to the family's new game. So she's very well taking care of it because maybe she's not as exhausted as he is. Another one of my favorite scenes of the entire season is, Wendy gets held hostage by Mason, and he thinks that he wants his child back, but he really doesn't. It's kind of a suicide by cop type moment. He doesn't know what he wants. He just knows that he feels spiteful against his God, against society, and rightfully so. The man's life is completely fallen apart. And this is the moment when we all knew it was coming, that he was going to fall off of his rocker. And this is that episode. But when she escapes and she runs across the front yard and he comes behind her and gives her a good football tackle and brings her down, they leave the camera as wide as possible. So you're just truly in landscape mode. And you see him like fight her and you hear her yell, and the microphone is just as far as the camera. So you hear her yell sort of reverberate through the off season of the Ozark. And it's just far enough away where that's probably what a crime really looks like. You're not always going to be zoomed in over it with an overhead shot with everybody perfectly mic'd. Like, it just shows a crime, a woman being assaulted, as brutal as it probably really is in the real world.
Yeah.
And I love the restraint of one shot, a football field away. Let's just show what a crime really looks like. Let's not oversensitize it. Let's just put it in what is probably reality, which I think made it felt even more brutal, because I'm like, whoa, that's, you see shady things happen in real life. And you're like, is something wrong happening? And normally it's not. But that's what a real crime looks like and what it sounds like, and how helpless you probably feel screaming in the off season with nobody to hear you. I found that to be a powerfully shot scene.
Well, because it's in contrast to all the other violence we've seen before then. I mean, we've had the assassination shot straight up, the pokers in the chest,
right?
People getting cut up and put into barrels, and just all manner of other kinds of killing and violence or whatever. And this one, it's like pulled back, like this, like you said, this is how it probably really is for people who see a crime. Yeah. I've not seen anything like that. I mean, I know you witnessed the great bike stealing incident of 06 in Chicago.
With your son, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but you were right up in the middle of that crime. So.
Yes, we were right in the middle of the crime, and I said, hey, that's not your bike. You can't steal that bike. And then when me and Tanner were surrounded with an army of inner city 12-year-olds with crowbars and chains, I'm like, yeah, we got no play here. Like, first off, if I lay a hand on any of these children, I'm going to jail. And I can't fight a mob of them. So, that's what it's like to fight crime, Connie. Sometimes you got to know when to back down. It was a Jacob Snell moment for me.
So you were really easily able to spot a crime from a distance in this show, because you've been right up on it in real life.
In the way that it ends is Marty does the impossible like he always does, gets the baby back. Mason looks at the baby and goes, what's different? What's different? And what's different is him. Right? Like, he had the baby out of his responsibility. The baby comes back and he realizes, this child isn't going to fix my problems. This child is my problem. My life is a problem. And he wants to kill himself, but because probably of his religious belief and how off his rocker he is, he can't do it. And so he forces Marty Bird's hand to become a murderer. And I always like when you watch these type of shows where, when you go down a road of crime, it has a way of sucking you in. And you had all of these standards. Well, I can just launder money, but I won't ever do this. I won't ever get involved in drugs.
Yeah, Marty probably was able his entire time to rationalize to himself, I'm just moving money around.
Yes.
They're the bad guys. What I'm doing is not that bad. I'm not doing a bad crime. And then he's just slowly devolved down into what he is okay with and what he isn't okay with, and murdering somebody now is like his baseline, I think.
Yeah, he's emotionally done. And once again, Wendy comes up with the plan of the cleanup, the getting rid of the body. But I love an episode that bookends. It starts out with the interview that the publicist set up, and it ends with that. And we understand why Marty is so vacant,
spaced out.
Yeah. Because he's hit a new low. Now, speaking of hitting a new low, another part of this episode, One Way Out, is Ruth starting to play her dad and help her dad find the money. Like, is she playing Marty or her dad? I couldn't figure out.
I couldn't either.
What her intentions were. Like, either she's going to give her dad some false hope to give her some breathing room, and still be loyal to Marty, or she's given up Marty and given in to the family vices. Like, the waterboarding incident has her really rattled. Maybe she's saying, hey, I need one way out of here. The name of the episode is One Way Out. Like maybe giving up Marty is her way to get away from all of this. I mean,
do you think it was a maybe that ambivalence that we both couldn't figure out, like what was going on? Maybe that's just mirroring her. There's one way out, and she's got to figure out which one it is, and she's kind of riding both fences right now.
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe playing both sides to see which way you could win. You know, like in horse racing, you know, when you do you pick 3 horses, but you don't commit to which order they're going to win in the win, place, and show bet. So I don't know, maybe that's what's going on, but it got interesting, and she'd always been seen as so loyal, and she passed the loyalty test through the waterboarding that it would then seem weird that she would become unloyal. The third to last episode, The Big Sleep, this has a really impressive, probably the most fancy cinematography and storytelling we'll see. It has that very disruptive start where there's the timeline of Rachel ODing 4 hours before, 4 days earlier, 2 hours away, you know, and just the timeline's going back and forth. And it's really a clever way of showing how Darlene fucks over the mob by putting drugs in the heroin. But to me, it was like kind of far-fetched that somebody we would know would get this one bag. It was a little bit loose. It was good storytelling. It was good editing, but the premise was a little bit loose.
And it seemed like, I mean, I don't know a thing about heroin or putting fentanyl in anything or bad drugs or whatever. It seemed like a little bitty bit amount of stuff she mixed into a really big vat of drugs.
Right.
So that threw me off a little bit. I started wondering about that. But what you mentioned about the timeline thing, what I like that this show has done is now we've talked about 10 episodes or so. We've had 4 or 5 different devices they've used to keep us rolling around the episodes, timelines, but we've not done the same thing. You know, like Orange is the New Black will give us a person's story, and then we're shot straight back into seeing their life before.
Right.
Then another character, we know we're going back to see what put them in jail. Blah, blah. So it got old with that show. Going to the flashback scenes. So I like that this is, you know, we start at one, but work our way back through the hours. And then another one we see, the first one, you know, episode where we're seeing them at the dance party. And it's not the same thing. We're not going hour by hour by hour. I like that they use a lot of different techniques to keep us. We weren't bored with it. We weren't able to figure out what was going to happen based on how they were doing the timelines.
No, and you know that the danger zone for series is episodes 6, 7, and 8. That's normally the lull. And so
stretch.
They really tried when they're setting up that final, you know, third act. They really tried to figure out different ways to make it interesting and fun. And I do like that about this show is that once a show establishes itself, that it's not all linear storytelling, then as the viewer, you give it a pass and you somewhat expect things to be a little bit different. And they never abuse that artistic narrative. They use it just enough to make it fun when it happens. Mm-hmm. The irony of this episode is that we see Marty napping on the couch with the baby, like cuddled into him. I don't know how they cast such a happy baby, but
that baby, I mean, if they're trying to get us to believe in real life that this baby just was brought into this house and it didn't cause any more chaos than it did. I mean, it was just, okay, the kid can watch it today, or, oh no, she's going to take it, or, oh, hey, I got to go do this. Can you be here with the baby? I mean, they have too many irons in the fire to have that baby in the house.
Yeah. And for the baby, it must be the world's greatest baby because it's just so chill in all scenarios. But removing some of that, and maybe they did stack one too many levels of stress here, like Charlotte wanting to get emancipated. Like you have so much going on. Do we really need to know that White's struggling with college? Like they could have maybe pulled back on a couple, but I won't argue it because they did keep it exciting. But Marty napping on the couch with the baby curled into him. The baby's happy. It's off season. It's peaceful outside that window. It's funny that we see Marty using that vacation home the way that it was intended. Like napping on the couch with your newborn son on your lap. Like what a great feeling. And the irony is that this moment that he looks the most relaxed we've ever seen him, you know that he's absolutely at ground zero, the most stressed out that he's ever been. It is literally the pinnacle of all bad things coming together in this moment of peace.
Oh yeah, he's got a perfect storm going on of
Every which way.
everything, because we've got to have this casino. The casino has to happen.
Casino equals life.
Yes, it equals escape. It equals the future. It equals keeping everyone happy, and everyone is doing everything that they possibly can
Right.
to fuck that up.
Right.
And it's like every time he turns around, it's just like, are you kidding me? I expect him to just be like, are you fucking kidding me? You did what? You filed for emancipation? I mean, I got tired of that, the arguments with that kid. And she's so entitled. And yes, it's in
You're talking
direct
about Charlotte?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's in direct contradiction to them all getting on board and coming together. And then, boom, she decides, oh, no, I'm going to get out of this. This is my escape. She's not smart enough to realize that she's not going to be able to just be emancipated. This is the Mexican cartel.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you go with their secrets just because you want to get out.
I was also afraid that we were starting to see the pattern of some shows, after 3 seasons, you realize that it's the same story over and over again. And I was worried that our ending was going to be they separate and they leave each other to only come back together. You know, there's a couple of shows that you realize like, oh, it's the same shit every year. Like, you know, Dexter became villain of the season and he overcomes the villain. And the next year a new guy shows up into town and it broke what was starting to be a really, really good show. Rachel falls for Marty's kindness. You know, they kind of have their heart to heart and they're trying to figure it out. And she just is such a lost puppy dog that it's brutal to watch that all together. And we also, you know, with Charlotte doing this sort of pulling away from the family, we start to realize that the kids really are a chip off the old block. You know, Jonah is learning everything he can about money laundering and how to go into a life of crime. And Charlotte is showing that she can be just as strong-willed and you know, really break away from things just like her mom had before. So the kids are kind of, you know, finding their own role models in this. And the episode ends with the Snell shootout, which only made me go, I've got to watch episode 9 as quickly as possible.
Yep.
I mean, what a way to end it. And once again, don't go down that road. Wherever road that is in the Ozarks, you go down that road, bad shit's looking for you.
No, there's got to be other ways in and out of town. I mean, come on, people.
Use the water.
That shootout was crazy. And the fact that Darlene was able to escape in that backseat with no injuries was crazy. But that's the device to get us to where we need to be with her and Jacob.
Yes. Episode 9, The Badger. It opens with this beautiful dream sequence, and I got a little bit worried when one episode ends with the shootout and then you're in a dream sequence. I'm like, sometimes episode 9 on a 10-episode season is the worst episode because all it is like foreplay for the grand finale. But then other times, episode 9 has the most action because 10 only lays the groundwork for a season to come. So I had no idea how this was going to go. And when it opened with the dream sequence, as beautifully as that was shot, I did like that it didn't last too long. It was just enough to show that at the end of it all, Jacob is just a guy that fell in love with a girl that he always felt was a little bit out of his reach.
Right. Young Darlene Snell is attractive in that way that, like, the student who comes to school middle of the year, end of the year from another city is attractive.
That was my girlfriend my junior year. Thank God she came from someplace else because she didn't know my previous record. And I somehow got like a super cute chick. And it only happened because she was a Navy brat that came in from someplace else.
So she's coming in for a fresh start somewhere, but you get to be whoever you want to be to that new person.
Yes.
Like you said, she doesn't know anything about you. The things that the other kids hate you for or make fun of you for or that you feel bad about or you're insecure about, you can drop that and be anything. And I think that was the attraction for Jacob with Darlene. And I think she was just intoxicating for him. You know, he was in the military, he comes back, so he's got that military strictness, which we speak about earlier. He has his code, he has his way of doing things. And then she just comes in like a firecracker, and she's attractive, she's intriguing, she's a little bit of a bad girl. And I think he's like overwhelmed.
And in over his head, which is, I think, what brings us into relationships is seeing something that you want and feeling like it's a challenge. And boy, oh boy, would she be a challenge to control until the very, very end. But what's interesting is it shows his loyalty to her and his love affair with her in the opening. But as this episode goes on, we see him starting to go behind her back, and they're as divided as they've ever been. And she just gets more and more stubborn as he gets more and more flexible. And you can tell that this is going to go in two different ways, because everybody's having a hard time.
Yeah, he's starting to crack. And I'm not saying like he's becoming weak or whatever, but his vision of her, he's fighting against that she has been this person he's been devoted to. Yeah. He's starting to see. It's like when you have that bad relationship and you really, really love that person, but you're starting to see, this is going to be bad for me.
Right.
This isn't going to end well. And this person's not going to change.
And this episode, I had no idea which way it was going to go. Number 9.
Yeah.
It just, all of the crimes, all of the stories are just coming to a head. And the pacing of this thing, this episode was a thrill ride, and they do a really good job. They don't put a lot of pop culture music in this show. It's a lot of instrumental, like dark stuff, and they do a lot of like mimicking the rhythmic heartbeat. And this is one of those episodes where it's like, if you're having a stressed out day, you probably don't want to watch this because it's going to make it worse for you, or maybe it'll make your problem seem so small compared to the birds. But the pacing of this show is insane because everything's coming to head, and we have the fishing confrontation where. We have Roy Petty, the detective. He's just like, fuck it, I'm going fishing. I'm getting away from all this. I'm going to take a little bit of off time. And then he gets completely confronted by Cade. And you just know it's a matter of time before that toolbox is going to his head. I mean, you know that this isn't going to end good.
Yeah, because Petty is like a powder keg that's been ready to explode since season 1.
Right.
And then you've got Cade, who is a wild card also. And as that conversation was going on, I could feel it coming. And then when he started and just turned and started berating him and talking down to him, I was like, that is the thing that we learned earlier, like with Darlene when she killed Dell for calling her a redneck. That's the thing you don't do, is start talking down to these people and coming off superior and insulting them. And he did it, and I knew that toolbox was going to fly.
You can feel that he's thinking, because he's a federal agent, that he has this sense of protection. Mm-hmm. And Cade is a total sociopath, doesn't see the law like we do. He doesn't see the normal boundaries. All he sees is what he feels. And that moment is boiling over right as Jacob is going out on his walk with Darlene. Now, did Jacob have a pocket knife kind of set up? Like, is this going to be a duel? Like, is one trying to take out the other? Did I watch that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. He slices that apple, slides that, or whatever piece of fruit it was, and then slides that knife into his pocket. And I was like, that's it. She's done for. He's realized he's got to cut his losses here. And then she makes the cups of coffee or tea or whatever they're having. And it shows a difference in their ways of going about things.
Right.
She poisons that coffee. Jacob was going to do an up close shank with a knife. Personal. Do it himself. Take care of it. It's his code. She is going to give him that coffee, and they're going to go out on a nice walk, and he's going to slowly become poisoned, and then she's going to be able to be loving to him and tell him, that everything is okay, and whatever the wording she used at the end, it's a difference in their personalities.
Yeah. And when she's sort of mothering him at the end, I love that his final words are, "I could never keep up with you."
Yep.
And it really shows that even though they're criminals, even though they're murderers, it's really just a guy that fell in love with a girl, and he chased her, tried to make her see reason when he could, and just chased her to the very end. And I love that at the end, the camera sort of flips and he sees her the way that she looked at that diner, probably a good 30, 40 years ahead. And what a beautiful death. The camera pulls up just like the deer. And, he had sort of explained, how the badger would die and kind of give back to the ecosystem. And here he is in the same way. As their love affair is showing the hardest of falling apart. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than trying to kill each other, like in a slow duel. Ironically, at the same time, we see that Wendy sells out Marty and his plan of putting everything in place, always taking care of everybody, always thinking everything through. We see another deception start to come together when Wendy is starting to make her own plan on how things are going to go. And it's not what Marty has planned. And she is now 100% making her own decisions. And Helen even says, you go down this road,
can't go back.
You tell me what you're going to tell me. Life is not the same. And it all starts to come apart. And then you're excited to finally get into the Gold Coast, which is the final episode of the season. It starts right out of the gate with the fishing death that we knew was going to happen, with the worst cover up in the history of deaths. You leave a car there, then you go back and put sticks and tree branches over the car. Like, it just literally goes to show how Cade has no thought about what he wants in that instant. No thought of killing a federal agent, how that'll open up all kinds of other problems. He just literally acts in the moment and then is running around like a chicken with its head cut off, but it's all too little too late.
Yeah, he makes a mistake of pulling that car in there all ramshackle or whatever, and the park ranger getting the license and everything. He's done for at that point, and he knows it later. That I think he tells Ruth, they're gonna find it, they're gonna figure it out. But yeah, it's too late.
It's way too late.
Little petty, his small time criminal mind has done him in.
And Cade, the way that he kills him, he smashes his head. He hits him once with the toolbox.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, shit. He has a little bit of moment of like, I just hit a federal agent. Then he goes all in the murder. And then like a true just psychopath, he takes a knife and punctures the body, knowing that if he holds him down with rocks and the waders, that hole in the human body will let the body fill up with water and it'll sink. And, by putting a hole in the lungs, you've basically taken out nature's life preserver, and he's just going to sink him down to the bottom of that creek. Proper pronunciation. Jonah is on that bad road coming in from school. Never go down that road in the Ozarks.
Nope.
He gets that forced haircut, and nothing scares the birds more than when someone finally lays a hand on one of their kids. They're now ready to play fucking ball. They are shooken to their core over that move.
Yeah, because they've been able to, for the most part, keep everyone's hands off the kids. The kids have done their own stupid shit and dabbled in things and caused problems, but nobody's actually touched them yet.
Right. This is the beginning of that. And when Cade goes back and starts trying to play hardball with Ruth and really, once again, he's made a mess of things. He's just going to push on everybody else. Ruth just walks right over to her nephew and says, look, I killed your dad. She's like, done. I'm not going to be a victim of your bullshit anymore. She knows her dad's in way over his head. She's smart enough to think beyond the moment. And she's like, you know what? I'll just do this so you now have nothing over me. Not a thing over me anymore.
It's just like Wendy with Petty.
Yep.
But she's standing her ground. It's all out there. If you have no secrets, nobody can hurt you. So
she's done.
She's done with it.
She's done, and she can read the writing on the wall that her dad's time is limited. We see Marty sold out the mob. He still thinks that there's a way that he can get them in there and he can get them paid, but he had to make a promise that there wouldn't be the Kansas City mob to get the permit. And, this is one of those moments where he says what he has to say for survival, and he thinks he's smart enough to figure out a solution on the backside. He also, though, thinks he's going to be on that plane and he's going to be gone, and that this deal is going to be somebody else's to worry about.
Right. He's going to be off escaping, and what he's done will come to light, but he won't be anywhere near they can touch him.
Right. And we're realizing now that Wendy has sunk her heels in, and she's ready to become a member of this community. And she sees the casino now as a good thing. And as Marty is giving his speech, he thinks that this is just his exit speech, but halfway through it, I think that you see a man that realizes his fate. He can't leave his family. His wife's not backing down. His daughter's making a good point. His son's turned into a criminal. Like, he's starting to realize that he's here, and he's here to stay. And that's cut in with the creepiest singing of the walk the line that you will ever hear, when Darlene has that baby in her lap. And she's just like basically justifying everything that she's gone through because now she has this baby. And theoretically, if she has the baby, she won't be worried about the land or anything else. I don't believe it for a second.
No. They think they've appeased her, that she's going away. She's not going away because, as we said earlier, she's dug in. She's never satisfied. There's always going to be something that she's got stuck in her craw about, and she's going to constantly cause problems for them. And with Marty, I think we saw a guy who realized, I've been in control in my mind. In his mind, he's been in control this whole time. And now he's like, I don't control any of this. It's just rolling, and I'm now along for the ride. Yeah.
And what a ride that it is when they get the whole family together for that photo. I know that I can push play on my TiVo and it'll show me in the Netflix app how much more I have left. But I don't like to do that because I want that ending to be exactly how they intended it, like just a swift punch. And when they're getting together for the family photo, I said, please let the family photo be the end. And it was. It goes from the photo to, I believe, sepia tone or black and white. And then they did a very, very slow fade down. And that's our season. And what a great 10 episodes, fantastic 10 hours. If Netflix could give me one of these once a month, I know I'm asking for the impossible, but it would be fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And with the couple of minutes that we have left here, here's a list of the loose ends if they do a season 3. And I think that they have to. It doesn't get better than this.
Yeah, it's been too critically well received, and too many people were impressed with the second season. I don't think they can bail out on this one.
It's so weird for something to get better, but this sophomore season was great. Here are the loose ends for a potential season 3. You have the pissed off KC mob that blew up the offices of Marty Birds. You have the conflict. Do they settle in the Ozark? And what does it look like when you now start playing the game for the long term? Because running and getting away from your problems isn't an option anymore. That'll change a lot of the negotiations and a lot of the things. And that also gets into how do they live there and have peace with the mob, but also keep the cartel happy. Will Charlotte come around? Does she want to run from the family? Does she become a supporting member? What does it look like if she steps out on her own? Does Wyatt find peace? Does he go away to college? Does that character disappear? Or does he stay around to be a reminder of sadder times? Can Darlene keep the baby? Does the baby really make all of her problems go away?
And do they at some point discover that who that baby is and who has it and how it got to her?
Yes. I mean, babies, you can't just scratch off their serial number. Like, there's a lot of logistics with a human.
They keep track of them pretty well.
Yes, they do. Then there's the casino. Does it profit? Does it make the problems go away? Can they run it off the land? Can they turn it into this big thing that, what was his name? The politician.
Wilkes.
Charles Wilkes. Does it turn into the big attraction that he wanted to? Does Jonah's illegal laundering account lead to problems? When he opened up that bank account, I said, that bank account, and he's now given tons of money like $1.8 million. So how does that door that they open lead to something? Now, with a federal agent dead, that means federal agents are going to have to come into the area to investigate how he died. That's going to get unneeded heat in an already hot environment.
Better federal agents than the one they're investigating the death of, too.
Yes, I hope so.
He was pretty poor.
And with the crooked cop that Snell had on the payroll, where does his loyalty go now? Because you always know that if you're running crime, you got to have a man on the inside.
Yeah.
So now he's kind of up for dibs. And Darlene, can anybody control her? Jacob was the only one that could, but do people fear her, or do they just fear Jacob? Like, she really came off as the great villain in this season. It'd be interesting to see what they could do with her and how far are they willing to take that in sort of a strong female way. You know, they did a good job of leaking the cultural narrative into the season. What they could do with her could be fascinating. And then last but not least, you have Charles Wilkes. You have a lot of political promises made. A lot of people in the Ozarks are going to be standing there with their hands out. They promised the world to a lot of people, and if they stay, they have to deliver on those promises.
Yeah, and Mark, you've just listed about 10 more plot points than a normal show has already. So if it comes back, I hope that and I guess it has been renewed. I'm not sure.
I looked around. I didn't see. There's a couple of websites where it's sort of the official way to know. Like if you go to IMDb, normally if you can hit that next season, it'll show you, and that's not there yet. And also at what is it? The TV by the numbers. It's not on there either. Those are normally two really good places to look. So it's got to come back though. I think they're doing that thing where they're just letting it breathe, and then they're going to make the announcement. I hope so. Yeah,
well, they renewed Glow, so hopefully.
So they're desperate for content.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They have to bring this one back.
No, this has got to come back. But yeah, you're right. Like any other show would be lucky to have 3 of these. These are really, a dozen great unanswered questions. But think about it. When this season started, we didn't know that a casino was going to happen. We didn't, we had some loose ends that they did a good job of tying up or fraying more. But what else can they come up with? I mean, this is really, really, when we were getting ready to give up on TV, it was nice to see something that is at that TV Renaissance level. And I think that's what Ozark has got the momentum to become.
How many times is it when we're watching a show that has captured us and we like it, but then we start to go, okay, well, how are they going to keep this up for 2 seasons? What are they going to do when they come back? I kind of thought that about Ozark, and I think about a lot of shows, and I like when I'm pleasantly surprised, which is what I was with this one. So now I know they were able to do it between seasons 1 and 2.
And they didn't cheat. There was not a week's time that passed from where season 1 ends and season 2 begins. Okay, here's what we're going to do. If you're still with us and you're having this Ozark Fun Fest that we're having, in our bonus content for subscribers of the Circle of Trust, we have our top 20 characters broken down. I gave them to Connie in alphabetical order so she wouldn't know what my list was. Connie, are you ready to? Are you still got more Ozark in you? You still hanging in here with me?
I still got it.
When us girls get together and talk TV, you can't stop us.
Nope.
Thank you for listening to Adventures in Design podcast. To hear part 2 of today's episode, visit adventuresin.design. Click where it says Circle of Trust and help support the only daily talk show designed for creative professionals just like you. Thank you for listening. Good day and good design.